what happens when we build this ideal mother and the person says, "That's a lot of nonsense, Pesso. Why do you do this crap with me? I pay you good money and you give me these fairy tales." Boom! You get hit in the face. I don't know if any of you are therapists, you get negative transference. They not only do they not take in, but they're going to attack you. Now, there's some people who may not attack, but they may never get an ideal mother. They'll say, "Now, my dog is always there for me, you know, or I don't need a mother because I go up in the woods," etc. So they never get an ideal mother, but they get some alternative thing that doesn't quite fit. Some people may never take in the new memory. But now what we do at that point, we look at why are they feeling resistance and antagonistic, and why are they unable to receive? And that goes to the next topic, which is stories of injustice. Okay? Stories of injustice. That means now there's 3 forms of memory that are running the present. Genetic, and it's trying to realize. Autobiographical, what happened or what didn't happen. And then stories of injustice. We are really influenced by stories of injustice. Now let me talk about that from another angle for just a moment. Remember I said in that genetic stuff we have survival of the self, survival of the species, but we also have in it a push to make things whole. That in our genes is an innate, absolute need to complete things. It has to do with healing and holing. That whenever we see something incomplete, one part of our psyche cannot handle that with satisfaction. We want to make it complete. Okay? So that's pushing, make things whole. And I like to play this little exercise at this point and have you see something simple. Some of you have seen this more than once. If you see this, what happens when you see that?
You want to change it.
Okay, now you see, she just saw a sign in space, but her hands went together. That what she saw made the movement of completion in her body. Okay? And when it was incomplete, there's frustration. When it's complete, didn't you feel the difference in your body? I mean, just making a bloody circle in the air, and you're going to get a body shift. Okay? And what happens when you think of that completion and incompletion? We're born with an expectation that family and cultural networks are going to be intact. And when there's an empty hole in those, we can't stand it. I call that, I hope I don't offend people, the Messiah gene. That in each person, there's an impulse to make things whole. And if we hear stories before our development of our prefrontal cortex, if we hear stories when we're young of incompletion, one part of us imagines we are the healer of that, and we're the only healer. And to be the only has a very powerful impact. I don't know, maybe I didn't do place, nurture, support, but I didn't tell you all the basic needs. Let me go back to the beginning. Remember I said place, and I gave you the 3 forms of, but then there's nurture, to take in. You have to be literally fed, symbolically fed, feed yourself. Literally supported, symbolically supported, support yourself. Literally protected, symbolically protected, protect yourself. Literally limited, symbolically limited, protect and limit yourself. Now, limits. If we have a need for which there is no answer, that need feels infinite. This is so fundamental in PBSP, and I think in life itself, that it's shape, counter shape. There's always the other. And wherever there is no other, that need or that impulse feels infinite because there's no other, and the other gives a counter shape. You might think of it as the membrane around a cell. You know, I won't talk about cancer, but cancer is like an unbound, it keeps replicating as if there's no other. Okay, most cell wall, anyway, I won't go into cancer, but how important it is to have the other. But not only do we have basic needs, the two energies, the nuclear energies that run our life are the capacity to create and the capacity to destroy. Sexuality and aggression. Those impulses and capacities have to be integrated, modulated, and then we use them to run our life, okay? But that's because there has been limits. If there's no limits, they break loose. Now, just to give you a metaphor, not so much a metaphor, you all know about the nuclear generators in Japan, Fukushima, right? You get a tsunami. What did the tsunami do? It broke the barriers that were keeping that energy contained. And you're going to either get an explosion or a meltdown. So how important it is to have the container. So when we fill holes and roles, we feel like the only. And that means this stuff breaks loose inside. Aggression and sexuality. But people who fill holes and roles don't feel aggressive and sexual. They feel somatically overloaded. They may be anxiety, there may be panic, there may be internal discomfort. It doesn't feel like any particular emotion. And some people act that out, more than some people. We're seeing the universe now. Just pick up the newspaper. Murder and rape is going on in the name of justice. Terrorists do murder and rape. We'll link that. Or criminals, murder and rape. But the average person doesn't break loose. But they're uncomfortable. And they get uncomfortable. So we have what I call systemic defenses to hold that stuff down. And the systemic defenses are depression. People there's all kinds of reasons to be depressed, but sometimes one gets depressed in order to stop that enormous overload. Or dissociation, I feel nothing in my body. Or retroflexion, you direct those violent energies toward the self. Or don't let yourself complete, don't let yourself be happy. Those are the systemic defenses. So when we fill holes and roles, we are the only. When we hear stories, I'll go into the stories shortly, but anytime we hear stories of incompletion and injustice, one part of our brain makes a movie where we are the healers of that. And when we're the only, we're going to get that break loose. And you remember when I said the client who then attacks, when we have fill holes and roles, one part of us wants to be the only authority on earth, and we get into us gun sights any other authority and we're going to wipe them out. And sometimes that's the therapist. You may get a client who says, I've been to 15 therapists and nobody's ever helped me, help me. And you try to help them and you say, you want to give me another piece of junk? They've wiped out every therapist on the universe, and even though they're longing to be helped, okay? So the other thing that happens when people fill holes and roles, not only do they get negative and have negative transference, their receptor sites for taking in what they need shrink. They simply cannot